Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're talking about water. Water is a very important molecule to life. At some point in every organism's life, they're going to need water. Life evolved in water, so we're going to look at a few aspects about water in this video. First off, water is H2O, right? It's made up of two hydrogens and one oxygen that are covalently bonded with one another. If we look closely at the nucleus of the oxygen, it has 8 protons in it compared to the 1 proton for the hydrogens. And so what happens is that these protons is going to have a greater pull on the electrons because protons are positive, electrons are negative, you remember that, and it's going to pull on those electrons. So what happens then, we get one end of the water molecule is going to be slightly positively charged, and the other end is going to be slightly negatively charged. This is what's known as a polar molecule. So we have an unequal sharing of the electrons. And again, that's due to the size of the nucleus and the number of protons in each of those nuclei. So water has the ability to form hydrogen bonds, and those are bonds between the hydrogen and the oxygen atoms between molecules. Now, because they can do this, water has certain properties that many other molecules simply don't have, and it's many of these properties that have made life possible. One of these properties is cohesion. This is when water molecules are being attracted to one another. You've seen this if you've ever overfilled a glass. You can actually put a little bit more water in the glass than what the glass can hold. And that's because of those cohesive forces are preventing the water from spilling out. Related to this is surface tension, which is the capacity of a substance to withstand being ruptured when placed under stress. So for instance, here we see a water strider. It is not getting wet. It is not breaking those cohesive forces of the water molecule. And so it can actually walk on the water. And that's all due to the high surface tension of the water. There's adhesion. This is when water molecules attract to other molecules. We see this in a graduated cylinder. So what happens in a graduated cylinder is that the water molecules are attracted to the glass molecules, and we get this curvature of the water. So whenever you're reading a graduated cylinder, you always want to read at the bottom of that curvature, or what is known as the meniscus. Some properties of water. One, it makes a very good solvent. So a solvent is when a substance can dissolve something else. So many things can dissolve in water. This is looking at sodium chloride or salt. Notice how the positive hydrogen end attracts to the negative chlorine ion, and the negative oxygen end of water is attracted to the positive sodium ion. Water also has a high specific heat. That is the amount of energy a substance can absorb without changing temperature. So for instance, here we have a large body of water like Lake Erie. Now it does take a while for the water temperature to heat up in the spring and in the summer because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to change that amount of water. But once the temperature gets up pretty high, and it'll get into the high 70s. When the temperature starts to cool down in the fall, well, the lake water is still pretty warm. And so areas along the lake is going to be a little bit warmer in the fall than the summer, than areas away from the lake. And so this actually sets up a little micro ecosystem in that area, which is why if you go up along the lake in the Sandusky area, and actually all along the lake, get into places like New York and into Toronto, Canada, you have a lot of vineyards and wineries because of that slightly longer growing season. It also helps to even out the temperatures. So away from the lake, we can get these huge changes in temperatures, but closer to the lake, it's going to be a little bit more stable. Water also expands when it's cooled. When water freezes, the volume increases and becomes less dense than the liquid water. Very few substances this will happen. Normally, when something goes from a liquid to a solid, it condenses and the density goes up and things would sink in it. Now we know this because ice floats, right? And so it's possible now in places like Lake Erie that in the wintertime can freeze over, you still are going to have fish that can live because there's still liquid water. So there's a few properties of water that make it a very special molecule. Again, so important to life. And I'll see you in class.